20 years ago, the then Prime Minister Paul Keating stood up in Sydney and gave what is now considered one of the most significant political speeches in Australian history. The Redfern speech dealt with the challenges being faced by Australia's Indigenous community. Today in Sydney's Redfern, a celebration will be held to mark the anniversary, and the daughter of renowned land rights activist Gail Mabo will read out Paul Keating's speech. Gail Mabo joins us now. Gail, thank you so much for coming in. It's wonderful to have you on Weekend Breakfast, and a particularly significant event that you're going to be involved in marking today in Redfern. A speech that really, I think, opened a lot of our minds in Australia to issues affecting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians.
That's right, and it was delivered by Paul Keating, and it was one of the. I was reading through it, and it was like, you know how you hear a politician say it, but then when you actually look at the words, and it's that thing of the words are so powerful, and I thought, wow, it's an honour for me actually to be reading this speech.
It really, I think, was quite astonishing in that we did have a Prime Minister saying things like it was we, the Australian people, you know, in history who were involved in dispossession, in murders, in taking children away, something that was really quite unprecedented, wasn't it?
It was, and it's that thing of like, and then I think that's when Kevin Rudd took a leaf out of his book and thought, well, maybe it's time for that apology.
It did take a little while to
it
get
did,
there,
a little while, but it was like it was there. It was always there, but just needed to take that bit more. You know, someone else to step and say, okay, now it's time for this.
And it's been commented that for someone to make those statements in that position, being Prime Minister, it took special courage and strength of conviction to make those sorts of comments. Do you agree?
I do, very much so. And I think he was the sort of man that, you know, in his position could do those things, and it was only in that position he could do it, because if he was on the backbench and anywhere else, that would have got lost. But because he was the man of the moment, it will resonate through many things. And you know, he was a man who, despite everything, just did what he thought was appropriate at the time.
And of course, speaking about that time 20 years ago, of course, your father, Eddie Mabo, supported by your mum, Benita, and the family, made some landmark changes here in Australia as well, with the Mabo Act being decision in the High Court. I mean, it was a really interesting time, I think, for Indigenous, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians in this country in terms of turning over a new chapter in our history, really, wasn't it?
It was, and it's that thing of like, you know, it doesn't feel like 20 years, but then you think, like, wow, if he was alive today, I wonder what he would be doing. You know, he'd be doing this interview, not me. You know, and it's that thing of like, but as his daughter, I'm gladly to step up to the plate, because I thought, well, you know, all the things that I thought, you know, your parents talk in one ear out the other, nothing. It was all stuck. So I'm here to honour the family and honour this celebration of the Keating speech.
What does it mean for you to be able to stand up and say this speech and in Redfern and, you know, take on that role in terms of speaking for Indigenous Australians here today?
Well, that's where, well, with myself, it's that thing. I don't normally take on any stance, but today, and being invited to do that by the gallery, it was like, wow, I'm honoured, and I'm up for the task, because you know, it's that thing of like, I've got to be present within the Indigenous community, which I am, but this is a different way of getting there, and it's good.
Do you think, in terms of the changes that we've seen over those 20 years from 1992 to now, that there's still more work to be done? I mean, for instance, there's the move towards greater recognition in our Constitution. Are those the sorts of things that you think we still need to address?
It is, but it'll take, once again, it'll take a little bit of time, but people keep pushing, it'll happen. But you know, maybe in my children's generation it'll happen, but we're the ones who have to push the way and make people aware that change has to happen.
So how do you feel in terms of where Australia is at now with acknowledgement and understanding of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders?
If it was a rock in a pond, the ripple would probably be the third one in a pool of many. But we're getting there, because the carry-on effect will be through the children. All the changes will come, because we can't change the way people think now, but we can change the future. and that's what we have to do.
And you mentioned your dad as well, Eddie Mabo, who of course is not with us and was not there with the historic Mabo decision either, though he fought so long and hard for it. How do you think he would feel if he were able to be here with us today and reflect on everything that's come since those times 20 years ago?
Wow. Well, my dad was a man who was a brilliant speaker, even though he said himself that, his English wasn't very good. And I thought, like, oh my God, Dad, you speak brilliantly. And, if he were here today, I'm sure he would give you a really long explanation on what he thought it was, because with myself, it's that thing of like, I take little bits and I digest and then I'll give you back some. But he is a thinker, and he would give you a big evaluation of many things and where he thinks Indigenous Australia should be going. And, and he would say, well, this is what we have to do. But for myself, I'll sit back and I'll pave the way for who needs to follow me. But as for that, it's up to the rest to pick it up and go.
Well, it's been left in wonderful hands. Gail Mabo, thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Breakfast. And looking forward to that event later on today in Redfern here in Sydney. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.